So let me just share my screen. Yes. So first of all, welcome everyone to this kickoff and the first episode for Apex Hours for Students. I really appreciate you guys joining in, and I believe you're all very excited to learn Salesforce, and that's what we're going to do as a part of this particular program. To this first episode of Apex Hours for Students. I'm really glad that all of you were able to make it and were able to join this program or this episode today. So as a part of this program is going to be a daily program that we're going to run starting today until August 16th. It will be a combination of 11 sessions, which will be a detailed, which will be absolutely technical sessions, right? And we will take you right through the curve, right from being a novice to becoming a seasoned admin and a Salesforce implementation specialist. So that's what the whole objective is, right? And as a part of this, beginning this particular journey, we're going to be learning about. We're just going to, touch the tip of the iceberg today, and we're going to start slow and then, kick it hard, and we're going to go far. So as a part of, so before I start this program, there are very special people that I want to thank, without whom this effort wouldn't have been possible. So first of all, Amit Chaudhary, thank you very much. Thank you for all the support. Salesforce, of course, there's nothing that I can mention all the support that you've been providing, and my team who have been working hard and taking all the time from their busy schedules. Everybody are very accomplished people in the community and the Salesforce ecosystem. So we have Purushottam Baigade, we have Amit Singh, and we have Atul Rajguru, who are also a part of the team and who are joining us right now. So thank you guys. Without your effort, this initiative wouldn't have been possible, and we wouldn't have been able to start this today. So again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Now jumping back to the agenda, so we're going to be talking about introduction to Salesforce as a part of this session. But before that, particularly, just a quick introduction about me. My name is Jigar Shah. I'm a global community speaker and the co-founder for path2code.com and Salesforce Apex Hours. These are pure community-driven programs, which I, along with my team, we do just to make sure that we can help people learn and explore Salesforce and share a little bit of technical understanding that we have of the platform with people. So, and Jigarsha189 is my Twitter as well as LinkedIn handle. So even after this particular session, if you have any follow-up questions, feel free to reach out and I'll be more than happy to help. All right. So before we jump into the specifics and nitty-gritties of the session today, some things that I want to share with you, some housekeeping rules, just to make sure the sessions are more productive enough. One is please mute your mic. However, do not shy away from asking any question. No, believe me, no question is silly. Keep adding questions to the Q&A window, and we will try to answer the questions in the last 10 or 15 minutes of the session, purely to make sure that we keep the tempo of the session going and we don't have any breaks. So with that, let's see what we're going to talk about today. So today we're going to be talking about some of the fundamentals and basics of Salesforce. So one of the first things that we're going to be talking about is what is cloud computing. I'm sure most of you might have heard this term by now, but even if you don't really know or understand what it is, we're going to help you understand that today. Then we're going to talk about a little bit about CRM and what CRM is. And with that, I'm of course going to introduce you to Salesforce, the new world of Salesforce that you are all so excited to learn. We're going to be showing you how to create your own Salesforce orgs. Don't really get bogged down by the terminologies, but yeah, that's something that we're going to see. And then, of course, we're going to see what is classic and what is lightning experience. So these are some of don't get overwhelmed by these jargons. These are fairly straightforward. As you start learning more and more about this platform and the technology, all these will, you will know this by the back of your hand. So this is our agenda today. Now, one of the key things, and I think Kiran also mentioned this, is today when, what is the biggest roadblock or what is the biggest challenge that IT as a vertical encounters today, right? Right from its ability to innovate. However, there are a lot of nitty-gritties that you see when you are uh, trying to innovate and build out applications which really truly help business and make a mark. There is a lot that goes on under the hood, and we don't really know, or a lot of us are clueless about what it is. So there is a lot of infrastructure that comes in place, right? And there are a lot of applications, and there are a lot of supporting operations that need to be dealt with in order to make sure an application is running successfully, right? uh, and this is, believe me, it's a Herculean job. Like, think of this, that today you had to kind of just have a website running on the web, and that website you had to get the servers yourself, and you had to fix in the network, and make sure that you have the load balancers in place, and security, and all that fancy IT stuff, which kind of goes or is resident within the hood of the application. I think that is a very crucial layer, and that is one of the biggest, I would say, is a challenge, because that kind of slows you down. Uh, if you don't really have those, then your idea, or even if you have a great idea, or some great application that you want to make available to the people or the masses, that is not possible. So this is acting as a hindrance today, if you really took a look at it from a traditional IT perspective. Now just think of this. Let's say if we just remove all this and you were just allowed to innovate. So think of this. You wanted to host a website, or you wanted to host an application. You don't really have to worry about anything. Let's say whether it is servers, or whether it is security, whether it is load balancing, whether it is exposing functionalities as an API, backup, disaster recovery, networks. You don't have to worry about anything. That is the world that we want to be in. And that is exactly where kind of cloud computing also comes in. So cloud computing is really helping you bridge the gap, or right from how you conceptualize, or if there is an inception of a specific idea or a great application, till the time it is made live. So it reduces this gap drastically, right? But if you typically talk about cloud computing, what exactly is cloud computing? If you really have to put a definition to it, or explain it to somebody who really doesn't understand it. So cloud computing is nothing but a method of providing services, software services, I would say, or applications over the internet without the need for any kind of applications to be set up or installed on your actual local machines. So think of this. You want to host a website, all you got to do is you need a browser and a live or a good internet connection, and you are up and running within minutes. So this is nothing less than magic, I would say. And there are reasons why you can do this. The pure reason is because if I go back to this particular slide, the overall infrastructure, the application, and the operations are taken care, or are really abstracted out in this entire cloud computing paradigm. And that's why it is such an important, it has made such an important mark. And everybody today, whether it is banks, whether it is federal governments, whether it is retail customers, everybody is moving to cloud and has adopted this cloud paradigm, right? Now, when we typically talk about cloud computing, there are essential building blocks that make up this whole cloud computing thing, right? And those are the terminologies that you would often hear. So when you talk about cloud computing, often one of the terms that kind of comes up is software as a service, right? Which typically means you have software available at your fingertips, but you don't really, it's kind of sent over or given to you as a service, right? So think of software being sold in your regular model, where you're let's say you consume electricity. You only pay for what you consume, right? You don't really have to set up anything at your end. The electricity provider gives you a connection, and that the electric, as soon as you switch on your button, there is light, or the fan works. So it is exactly on these principles. Cloud computing also exactly operates on these principles. Now, uh, that being said, software as a service, there are other paradigms or other building blocks to it, right? So these are all different types of services that can be provided using the model of cloud computing, right? The next is a very essential piece, is database as a service. So I remember back in the days when I started off, the good old days, there used to be a local database server, and we used to set it up, and there were a ton of things that we had to do. Imagine you don't have to do all that, and the database is rightly available at your fingertips simply through a web browser. So that is another model, or that is another service that can be provided using the cloud computing model. The other key important piece today is integration. Today we live in a world of collaboration, right? No system, no humans, and anyways, man is a social animal. So it is of essence that we are allowed to collaborate, and we are able to collaborate and do that also with applications. And that's exactly where integration comes in handy and is the most essential piece in today's IT landscape. So again, providing the ability to integrate one application to another application, and ensuring that they can connect and talk to each other, exchange data, and make sure that people who are using these systems can have a complete spectrum of their data and make sense of their data. That's where integration comes in and really helps out systems. So integration is another piece that can be provided as a service using the cloud computing model. And last but not the least, today is the world of personalization. Everybody loves a personal application, whether it's a website, whether it's a phone. You want it. There has to be a personal touch, and businesses are no different, right? So this ability to personalize is a very essential thing, and gives that ownership and that sense of belonging to the business as well as the customers. And this particular piece is one of the most crucial pieces or one of the most essential building blocks of cloud computing. And that's exactly why logic as a service helps you achieve this objective of personalization, right? So these are some of the key fundamental blocks. Whenever you really talk about cloud computing, these are the terminologies that they pop up. So hopefully now when somebody brings up a SaaS or a PaaS, you can actually relate to what they're trying to say and understand what that means in terms of cloud computing. Uh, we'll talk about a bit. We'll talk about more in a bit as to why we are talking about these terms. All right. I think you might be confused, saying that, hey, we signed up to learn about Salesforce, but what is this guy teaching? So just hold on for a couple of minutes, and the revelation will happen. Now, another important key term that I want you guys to understand is what is a CRM. So CRM is a customer relationship management, is a principle basically, and it only focuses on two things. Essentially, customer relationship management typically talks about, or the principle itself talks about managing your customers effectively. Basically, it helps you manage the relationships with your customers very effectively. And when we start talking about customer relationship management, there are two or three key pieces that come into play, right? So first is when you can really make sure that the relationship with your first thing is, you can go out and get customers, right? So there is an entire process that which is more sales driven in nature, and you can really get customers on board. Now, once these customers start using your products or services, it is essential today to make sure that you have a one-on-one touch point. You are able to collaborate with them and also take care of their issues or their requests that they have while using your products and services, right? So there is a piece where you are able to acquire new customers and generate revenue, because all businesses run to generate revenue. And then there is this piece where you are supporting your customers to make sure that you can enable them to use your products and services efficiently. And that's exactly where this customer relationship management piece comes in place. So customer relationship management is a principle, and a software that implements it is called as a CRM software, right? Now, the reason why we are typically talking about cloud computing and now CRM, they're very different things, is because when we talk about Salesforce, Salesforce is a beautiful recipe that is an amalgamation of these two principles. So Salesforce, if you really talk about, is nothing but a cloud-based customer relationship management software and a platform which helps you, you know, perform all the activities required from, which principally fall under the umbrella of a CRM, right? And do much more beyond the traditional sales and service. There are essentially a lot of applications which you can just sign up and use, and they are beautifully embedded such that they all can talk to each other. So there is, if you want to focus on the marketing aspect of a business, then you have Marketing Cloud. And then if you have the sales part of the business, which is then there's Sales Cloud, and the post sales, which is the Service Cloud. But beyond this, if you also have like you are a retail business, something like an Adidas or maybe Amazon, you could also use Commerce Cloud, where you could actually have an entire storefront built on Salesforce, readily available, right? You don't really, with a minimalistic customization, you can be up and running within weeks, I would say, which would essentially take months, or I would say years. So that's what Salesforce is all about. So typically when people now talk about Salesforce to you, you should be able to explain and tell them that it's just a customer relationship management software with some amazing features that helps you cater to the complete spectrum, right from acquiring a new customer and getting them onboarded and making sure that they remain customers for a lifetime, right? So that's what Salesforce is. Now, let's talk a little bit about the Salesforce architecture, okay? Because we've been talking about Salesforce all this while. Let's understand and dwell a little deep into what exactly is Salesforce, okay? So as per the definition, it said that it's a cloud-based or a cloud-based CRM software. But what goes on? What is the magic, right? So Salesforce, so any kind of cloud computing system, right, of course runs on servers and IT and hardware, right? It is just that you as a consumer, or you as somebody who is using the technology, doesn't really need to worry about these nitty-gritties. What happens under the hood is, of course, there is a server, but if you really talk about the architecture, the Salesforce hardware pieces are really shared among multiple tenants, okay? So Salesforce is based on multi-tenant architecture. Now, don't really get bogged down by this term. It is very simple. So there's a picture of a building which rents out office spaces, right? And each floor or each particular space is owned and by a different office. So Salesforce architecture is very similar, and kind of follows this principle, where there is the entire hardware can be the analogy of the entire hardware can be equated to a building, right, which is a common piece of hardware. And then there are different tenants which own spaces in this building. So in case in the Salesforce world, the tenants are the customers who own a specific, who are capable of accessing resources on this particular hardware. And there is a defined boundary around these resources, just to make sure that none of the tenants, right, none of the owners monopolize these resources, right? So this is what it means to have multi-tenant architecture. And the reason why it is essential to understand this architecture is because that is what fundamentally differentiates building applications on Salesforce as compared to the traditional methods of building applications versus maybe Java or .NET or even PHP, Python, all those technologies. So this is what also provides great performance and speed to the Salesforce applications as compared to the traditional development platforms. So this is one of the key concepts and an essential ingredient in making your Salesforce business applications a success. So with Salesforce now, what you get to do is you don't really need to focus on the hardware. You don't really need to focus on your security. All of that is taken care by the platform itself. All you need to do is focus on innovation. And that's exactly why and how Salesforce is able to bridge that gap and really help you innovate within weeks rather than months and years, which it would take earlier, right? So this is an essential piece of Salesforce information. With that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just quickly switch my window to the browser so as to show you what how do you sign up for your first Salesforce org. So before I do that, just to give you a terminology, so when you say you sign up for Salesforce, the environment that you get is termed as an org. Org is a short abbreviation for organization. So each org is owned by a specific customer, right? But Salesforce has this great thing that they also give out orgs where you can try your hand, dirty your hands and learn Salesforce for free without really having to pay any kind of subscription charge. So you can actually sign up for a free Salesforce Developer Edition org, which is loaded with all the functionalities. All the new features that come in are all there on the Salesforce Dev org, and that's what we are going to learn to create today. Okay, so how do you go about and create your first Salesforce org? So it's very simple. Give me a moment while I switch my window. All right, so hopefully everybody can see my browser screen right now. So what exactly, how do I sign up for a Salesforce org, right? So it's very simple. You just need to go to this particular URL which says developer.salesforce.com, right? Now, you can also sign up for orgs from this particular URL which says salesforce.com. But when you sign up for orgs from there, it is a 30-day trial edition, which means that it expires after 30 days. But you guys being developers and wanting to dirty your hands and learn a lot more about the platform in depth, a developer edition org is the best for you guys because it is a lifetime free org, right? You don't have to pay anything, and as and when Salesforce has 3 releases a year, by the way. When I say releases, it will upgrade features and add a ton of features every thrice a year, right? And it's all based on the seasons, right? So your developer orgs are also upgraded automatically, right? That is the beauty of cloud computing. You don't really have to worry about upgrading and anything that was built on the previous versions stays intact. It runs flawlessly without really you having to do anything. So that being said, all you do is go to developer.salesforce.com and then click the sign up button, right? The moment you do that, you're going to be brought over to this particular form, and it says get your very own developer edition, and it clearly mentions that it is a free edition. So it's a simple sign up form. Put in your first name, last name, email address, role and things like that. You can choose your country even if you're based out of India or any other country. You can sign up and create your own org, and once you have to specify a username. Now, one of the key things that you got to remember about Salesforce usernames is usernames will need to be in the form of an email address. Now, it could be a legit email address. The username could be a legit email address, or it could be something like, jsha@abc.com, right? But it's just a username. Okay. Now, when you provide the username, if it's available, it's already going to show that it's not going to show you anything. But if there's something which is not available, it's going to flag that. Okay. So just make sure that your usernames are unique across the instances, right? And you provide a username. The moment you do a sign me up, I'm not going to fill in this form because everybody is very, you guys are the millennials and you guys are all well versed with the sign up procedures, right? But when you hit the sign me up button, it's going to send out an email to the email address that you registered over here, right? And once you use that email address, once you use the email on that email address, it's going to have a link. You click the link, it's going to ask you for a password reset, and you can simply reset and be up and running. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to log out right now. This is one of my developer edition orgs that I've been using since about a decade now, right? So I'm going to so simply after all of that, how do I go and access my Salesforce instance? So it is very simple. Like I promised, all you have to do is have a web browser and a great internet connection. And I have those two pieces with me right now. So I'm just going to simply go and say, type in login.salesforce.com, type in my username and my password, right? So this password is going to be, so the first time when you access the registration link, you will get the ability to reset a password, set a password just to make sure, a password that you remember, and use that password over here. Once you do that, you can go to login.salesforce.com, put your username, put your password, and say login, and voila, you have your first very own personalized, full-blown and free Salesforce instance, and you can do all the magic with this particular Salesforce instance. Okay, so that's how you would sign up for a Salesforce org and start creating the magic. Now, one of the key things that often and like I promised is about, so I'm going to quickly switch my screen back to the presentation. So one of the key things or key terminologies that you hear about often in the Salesforce world is classic and lightning experience. So what really happened was, of course, Salesforce has been a great platform. It had a great user interface even back then. But as times change, like we upgrade ourselves, we upgrade our phones, Salesforce also did that with their platform. And so today is the time when people access systems over the mobile devices or handheld devices, and user experience is the key differentiating factor today of how customers adopt and use the system. And that's exactly where Salesforce took their old user experience. You see the snapshots. The one on the left is actually the Salesforce Classic, which was the legacy or the old user experience, right? And it took that, did some magic and came up with an amazing user experience called a lightning experience. So Salesforce Classic and Lightning experiences are nothing but user experiences on the Salesforce platform, right? Classic is the one which was old, and Lightning experience is the one which is prevailing as of now. You can see all that on your Salesforce org. So let me just quickly switch. Okay, switch to my Salesforce instance and show you. So this particular thing that you're seeing right now is the Lightning experience, right? It has some great user experience. It is automatically responsive, which means that if you start accessing this over the browser, it's intelligent enough to detect that, oh, now it is being access through a browser. You don't really have to do anything very special to make it mobile compliant. So it is already handheld device friendly, mobile friendly, which is a win-win for the customers today. Now, that being said, okay, we talked about Lightning. What about Classic? So like I said, Salesforce is a very flexible platform. You still have the ability to switch to Classic. So even if you have customers who are using Lightning experience and you believe that you want to switch to Salesforce Classic, you can just do it with simply a click of a button. So all you have to do is the username, click your username on the right hand top corner. And once you say switch to Salesforce Classic, there's going to be magic, and you just switched over to your Classic edition. So, and similarly, I can go back and forth, right? So if you are if you've been using Salesforce for a very long time, a lot of people are kind of grooved to this old Classic user experience. But like I said, we need to upgrade ourselves, and so do we need to upgrade our Salesforce systems. And that's exactly why you ideally should be switching to Lightning experience. And I can switch to Lightning experience with that specific link. So it's very easy. I could churn and have a Salesforce org in a jiffy. I could customize my user experience purely with a click of a link. So there's some amazing stuff that you can do with all this. And in the upcoming sessions, we're going to be talking about how we can build data models and build out business applications that can really help businesses and help you guys become as developers focus on the innovation and not on the nitty-gritties of how you need to maintain a particular platform. Okay. With that, I'm going to switch back to my slide deck. And so that's exactly what we saw. And that brings me to the end of my first session for Apex Hours for Student, right? But I think one of the key things, or the beauty about Salesforce, is the ecosystem and the platform is so open. So not only do they give you the ability to use the platform, a free edition, lifetime free edition, but they also they provide you a learning platform, which is Trailhead, right? So all that, so Trailhead is a self-paced learning platform. Again, it is a free platform. All you have to do is go to trailhead.salesforce.com and you will be able to access that. You just sign up the same way. If you have a Salesforce account already, let me just switch and show that to you also. So I'm going to go back to my browser and I'm going to go to trailhead.salesforce.com. That's exactly what I was talking about. And once you do, so if you don't really have a Trailhead account, you can just sign up for free using the sign up button. Okay. And that's the same thing. So if you have a Google account, LinkedIn account, or an email, you can sign up with that. But you can also single sign on your Salesforce instance into your Trailhead account. So you can just marry your sales developer edition Salesforce org and your Trailhead account so that they can talk to each other, right? So that's how you typically sign up. And once you sign up, it'll be your own personalized portfolio that you will see. And they have got great modules, whether it is talking about platform basics, data modeling, or advanced topics. So the entire platform is divided into modules and trails and trail mixes. You can even create a combination of your own learning path, right? And that's what they call it. That is what is called as a trail mix. And you can create your own trail mixes and share. So let's say you are trying to learn Salesforce and you encountered there are 10 great things that you learned from Trailhead. And that you believe could be a great stepping stone for people to start learning Salesforce. So you can actually churn out your own trail mix and share it, and people can learn from you what your experience is. And there are some great people in the community who've done a lot of good trail mixes for different products, right? And all of it is out there. It is free. they also have hands-on projects, so you can go and build out hands-on projects. If you think a trail is too long for you and you want to take it into smaller chunks, then it could also be modules. So it's all there, available for free. Take the, do benefit from that, because that is the core. So with that, as a follow-up to this particular session today, I would recommend that if you want to get your hands dirty, try the admin beginner trail and the platform basics module on Trailhead. A great experience to learn and understand what Salesforce is in depth, right? And believe me, we also today, even after spending so many years with the platform, I know so many people, so many senior folks who use Trailhead and are using that to learn and educate themselves on the platform and the new features that come up. So that's what Trailhead is all about. And last but not the least, there are some additional resources which I'd like to share with you. So there are admin resources, and there is great documentation provided by Salesforce, which helps you understand a lot of great help documentation, where you can go and understand help.salesforce.com, or typically if you want to become an admin, it is admin.salesforce.com. For developers, it is developer.salesforce.com. And there are great resources available on these websites to improve and enhance your skills. So do follow, or do check out these resources. There's some great learning stuff out there. And with that, I'll kind of open the board for questions. So I think there have been quite a few. I've seen a lot of action on the chat window. So let me just make sure. So I do see that there are quite a few questions over here. I think there is a question by Anil Kiran, who says that what should I learn, or what should I learn, Aura or Lightning Web Components? Of course, this is a great question, Anil. Now the thing is, you should be learning both, and both are essential, right? It is not that Aura is going to phase out, or it is not that Lightning Web Components is going to take over. Both can typically coexist. So you can actually have your Aura implementation and talking to your Lightning Web Component, and both being a part of the same implementation, and both can coexist on the same page. So ideally, if it's a recommendation that I had to provide, I would recommend you learn both, because both have its own value and both are very wonderful technologies. Other question that I have is from Chandana, which says, do we need to learn Visualforce? Answer to that question is, see, anything and everything that is available as a feature of the platform, I would recommend you to learn. Of course, I would recommend you to learn it in bite-sized pieces, so that you don't get overwhelmed. So if you are just starting out, so let me just give you a background. If you're talking about Visualforce is typically a page-based development methodology, versus Aura and Lightning Web Components are a component-driven methodology. So component-driven development model. And these are two different things, right? So before Aura and Lightning Web Components came into place, Visualforce has been there for I think around a decade now. And there are still customers who still build out applications, or at least have applications running which use a lot of Visualforce pages. So my recommendation to you is, yes, you should learn Visualforce, or at least know about it. But if the question is that a prerequisite to you learning Aura or Lightning Web Component development? Answer to that is no. Because what I understand, Aura and Lightning Web Components need a good JavaScript fundamental, rather than purely just Visualforce. And that's the reason why, both have its own value. And, it's not one versus the other, but what is it that you can truly learn from the platform based and apply it to solve a business problem. So we have another question. So there is certain question by, I think, Abhi, which says that based on the study, there are some features that are supported in Classic only. Now, here's the thing. Classic has been then for around more than a decade, I think, and it is a very matured user experience, correct? How? Hello, guys, can somebody verify if you guys can hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right, perfect. Thanks, Amit. So, uh, so we, of course, there will enlightening experience that has been around for, I believe now around 4 to 5 years. There will be features. So we are in that transitioning phase from a platform perspective, and there are definitely workarounds. So it is not that there are complete limitations, and that's not the right way to look at it. Uh, each technology has its own, or each user experience has an incubation period, and that is something which you need to account for. So it's truly not limitations, it is more about the transition and how you can transition from one feature to another. uh, and there are a couple of other questions. I think it is addressed to Amit, but I will take the privilege of answer, or I'll just take the chance of answering that question. I hope, Amit, you don't mind that. So it says that, hey Amit, I know somewhat Trigger and Apex in development, and I learn it from Trailhead. I have no knowledge on Visual Force. Should learn Visual Force first, then go to Lightning Web Components, or I can directly go. Uh, so I believe the question is, should I learn Visual Force and then Lightning Web Components? Like I said earlier, there's no prerequisite here, right? You can learn either of the two. Lightning Web Components is the technology of the future. So that's something which I would definitely ask you to focus on. But if you don't really have a JavaScript fundamental, I would recommend understanding JavaScript before. And by the way, there's a great module on Trailhead for learning JavaScript, right? And explaining you the key fundamentals of JavaScript as a technology. So you can do that. But answer is, it's not Visual Force versus Lightning Web Component, because like I said, today also businesses use Visual Force and are usually using Visual Force. But if you're just trying to learn one of the two, I'd say you can start with Lightning Web Components and Aura Components, because that is the technology of the future. And then also, once you understand that, understanding Visual Force would be fairly easy. All right. So that's the question. I hope I am not missing any questions. Are there any questions that are still there? Let me just quickly check. So I'm going to pause my share for a minute. Okay, so there is this question which says that, can you talk a little bit, I believe it's from Vikram, and it mentions, can you tell a little bit about sandbox features? Okay, so I will give you a very quick understanding. So what really happens is, and the term sandbox has been there right from the time software development has come into existence, right? Sandbox is nothing but typically a term which refers to a system which is like the actual live or production environment, but is not the same. And it just emulates the production or the live instance purely so that as and when you release new features to your instance or to your production live system, uh, these you can absolutely be sure that any change that you introduce on your live system does not break and stop the system. And that's purely because, when I say stop the system, it kind of brings things to a halt, right? And that is purely because of a developer's mistake, or it was not developed as per the best practices, or it does not have a great design. So what you do is, you have a different system in place which emulates the production, and you kind of build stuff out there, test it out, and then we're absolutely sure you kind of push it over to production. Okay, so now from a Salesforce standpoint, the methodology is not very different. When you get a Salesforce org, you can create different types of sandboxes. There are and each has a very specific purpose. I'm not going to dwell into the specifics of that, but yeah, you've got a developer sandbox and a full copy sandbox, and each has its own nitty-gritties and a specific purpose to serve, because that in itself is a mammoth, and it'll require at least an hour for me to talk about it. But this is a very quick overview in a nutshell of what sandboxes are and how Salesforce provides this ability of creating sandboxes from your production instances and using them to build out applications and new features and introducing them slowly to your production and live instances. Um, I believe we have time for one more question. And I'm going to take one last question, but guys, don't feel disheartened. I know you're all very enthusiastic to learn Salesforce, and that's the reason why you're coming up with questions. So even after this particular session, you have more questions. Try to post questions on our page, and even on my Twitter handle or maybe my LinkedIn handle, and I'll try my best to answer them even at a later point in time. So the one last question that I'm going to answer is by Rafi, and it says that, can you explain the difference between cloud and Salesforce? Okay, so essentially, cloud, when you talk about cloud computing is a paradigm. It's a principle, right? It's a principle of how software services are made available to customers, right? Salesforce is a product that uses this paradigm and to provide CRM services to their customers, right? So Salesforce uses the cloud computing paradigm. So such systems which use the cloud computing paradigm are called as or referred to as cloud systems, right? So there is technically there are two very different things. It's just that Salesforce uses cloud as the secret sauce to make its applications, platforms, APIs, and a ton of other magic that it has to the consumers, to the developers, and people who are using the application. All right. I think that was about the last question. Thank you so much for being such an amazing audience. So this curriculum, if you click on the specific topic, modeling data in Salesforce, which is going to be the next session, and that's going to be happening tomorrow at 7 p.m. IST. Just click on the session, and there is a registration link. It says register here for episode 2. So we're providing you with this facility where to register for each session separately. The moment you click on this particular link, it is going to take you to a page which is going to ask you to provide the details. One of the key things to note over here is by default it shows August 1st, which is the first session, that is today, but don't forget to choose the relevant session. For tomorrow's session, when you register, it is going to be August, okay? And you put in your first name, last name, and your email address, and you should get a notification, and that's how you should be able to register. So you will have to keep doing that for each of these sessions. Like I said, we have this program comprises of 11 sessions, and I don't want you to miss each of these sessions. So because there is great content awaiting for you, great technical content. Now, one of the things that you would gain from each of these sessions is we have an entire project planned out throughout these sessions. So this mini project is what will apply each of these concepts that you see, whether it is data modeling or whether it is automating your business processes. Each of these concepts will be explained to you with the help of a mini project, right? And you can also go out and build out that mini project, right? So hence I would request you that do not miss out on any session, because if you, let's say, do not join tomorrow's session and you join in for the third session, you're going to miss out on the piece that was covered as a part of that complete project here. So do make sure that we'd love to have you on all the sessions, and thank you again. Thank you so much for being such a wonderful audience, and keep learning, and keep learning Salesforce, and keep learning new concepts about Salesforce, and keep joining us. Thank you so much. Thank you for being such a wonderful audience. Thank you again. All right. With that,
thank you, everyone.
I'd like to end the session. See you again tomorrow at 7 p.m. Indian Standard Time to learn about data modeling. And we have another great speaker who's going to be explaining how to model your Salesforce data and build out a relational database or a data model on Salesforce. So thank you. Bye-bye.